Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the Central Midwest Regional, a virtual experience. This has been a great event so far. Thank you to all of our exhibitors for participating in our trade show and to all of you for taking time out to be with us today. I'm Hitesh Patel, Central Midwest Regional Director. I am honored to serve as your regional director. It is a privilege to work on your behalf of and to be an advocate for initiative and issue AAHOA is constantly working on. I would like to thanks to our sponsor, Chase and RLH Corporation. Their support means so much for our association and we are grateful for their partnership. Here is a message from Chase.
Chase, we are committed to the well-being and safety of our customers, our employees, and our community. We are here for you when you need us, whether it's providing best practices, professional consultation, or business tools and resources.
Here a message from RLH Corporation.
All right, we have breaking news now. World Health Organization has just declared coronavirus a pandemic at this point.
RLH Corporation is an innovative hospitality company focused on the franchising of 8 brands from upscale boutiques to economy hotels. They emphasize maximizing return on invested capital for their nearly 1,000 hotel owners across North America through relevant brands, industry-leading technology, and forward-thinking brand services. RLH Corp thanks AAHOA for being a major industry partner and providing our hotel owners and operators with an association where hotelier voices matter and imperative resources are readily available. Okay, it looks like Hitesh might have dropped off. I'm going to go ahead and pick up. Your involvement is key to AAHOA's success. Our officers, our board, and our ambassadors are all volunteers. I would like to recognize our Central Midwest region ambassadors. They work tirelessly to support AAHOA in our region. Arti Patel, Hiran Patel, Jignesh Patel, Krishan Patel, Krishna Patel, Mayor Kumar N. Patel, Mantu Patel, Neil J. Jain, Pinakin Patel, Prexa Jain, Priyesh Patel, Rikesh Patel. I would also like to recognize the Central Midwest Region 2019 Premier Ambassador, Pinakin Patel. He went above and beyond in service to AAHOA and to our nation's hoteliers, and we are grateful for his service. Thank you to all our ambassadors for all you do for our region. Now let us take a moment to review our regional performance. As you can see, the Central Midwest region has 483 paid members and 316 lifetime members. I urge you to encourage your networks to join or renew their AAHOA membership. Hoteliers are struggling right now, and we need to rely on each other more than ever. If you have a friend or family member who is not yet an AAHOA member, help them out. Encourage them to become a member today and take advantage of all the resources that AAHOA offers. As a reminder, AAHOA membership is free for those of you who own an RLH corporation or G6 franchise. Also, if you or your fellow hotelier is a Wyndham franchisee who has never been an AAHOA member, you too are eligible for a free membership. This year, our region has raised $2,513 for the AAHOA PAC. If you have not yet donated to our PAC, you can do it right now securely through AAHOA.com or here at our regional by visiting the information desk in the lobby. Your support is greatly appreciated. And here are the names of those who have donated to the AAHOA PAC. We are grateful for your support. AAHOA supports candidates who support small business and more specifically, hoteliers. Here are the candidates that AAHOA PAC supported in our region. We work best when we work together. I am proud of what we have accomplished, especially in the face of this pandemic. I am grateful for your support and your participation, especially all of you who have updated your property data through AAHOA.com. When you update your property information, it helps us help you, such as when we're talking with brands, vendors, or elected officials. It helps us paint a more complete picture of your influence as job creators and leaders in business and in your community. We also need your emails and cell phone numbers. And be sure to opt in to receive the latest news, updates, and special deals. Please take a few minutes today. Update your property information through myahoa.com and help us better advocate for you to best communicate with you. We have several important events coming up, including additional regionals. Log into AAHOA.com every day to find new events to attend, even virtually. We add new ones every day. I'm looking forward to a great year, and I'm pleased to introduce our next guest as a part of a panel to discuss the 2020 State of the Lodging Industry and top issues in our region. Please join me in welcoming Jim Hopper, President and CEO of Oklahoma Restaurant Association, Tina Patel, Chief Financial Officer of Promise Hotels, Harshal Patel, Vice President of Champion Hotels, and our moderator, Eric Reinerman, Director of State and Local Government Affairs for AAHOA. Eric?
Hi, everybody. How are you? Welcome to the Arkansas, Central Midwest, and Gulf Regional in what has been, as we all know, a very tumultuous and unpredictable 2020. I'm thrilled to be your moderator. Sorry, we had an echo. I think we're okay. I'm thrilled to be your moderator today. As Tiffany said, I'm one of the directors of the State and Local Government Affairs. A lot of you may know Katie too. She's been with us for a while. I speak for the entire association when I say that we're very excited to have you here. We've got three great panelists. Tiffany introduced them, so I don't need to. Jim, Harshal, Tina, we're really glad that you could all join us today. I'll let them tell you a little bit more about themselves in a moment, but I wanted to start off by giving everyone a moment just to, pat themselves on the back and take a deep breath. You all deserve it. 2020 has been a real whirlwind that nobody saw coming. Just making it this far is really an accomplishment, and I want to recognize that. Hoteliers have had to become on-the-fly experts on, complicated public health issues. You've had to parse through dense state and local regulations to understand what's legal, what isn't in this new pandemic landscape. Many of you have had to deal with the traumatic fallout of having to downsize your businesses, the ongoing liquidity crisis, never before seen RevPARs, learning how to navigate the federal government's bureaucracy and applying for, PPP loans and the other assistance programs. That's not easy. These are tall tasks, considering that while juggling all of those things, you've had to actually run your businesses for the sake and well-being of your employees, the public, and of course, yourselves and your families. So I wanted to thank everyone who's here tonight and those that weren't able to join. I know a lot of people watch these later, so I want to welcome them. I want to thank everyone for what they've done to get us through the pandemic. What you've accomplished thus far is, it's admirable, it's honorable, and we're all in your debt. So please know that we at AAHOA are working hard for you every day. With that, I just want to give my three panelists a brief second to introduce themselves. Tina, why don't you go first, and then Harshal and Jim can follow, if that works for everybody.
Great, thanks, Eric. Sam Mubarak and Happy New Year to all my AAHOA colleagues. My name is Tina Patel, and I'm the Chief Financial Officer for Promise Hotels here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I am responsible for the company's financial health, risk management, and banking relationships. Our company currently owns 11 hotels in the northeastern Oklahoma area, including one we just opened today. Like most AAHOA members, I have been in the industry my whole life, and I'm here to help my colleagues as best as possible today. Thank you.
Hey everyone, my name is Harshal Patel with Champion Hotels. We're based here in Oklahoma City. We currently own in the OKC metro area and surrounding suburbs about 30 properties. And we're looking forward to this panel. I appreciate you guys allowing me to be on it. Thanks.
Good afternoon. My name is Jim Hopper, and I am the, it says on the screen, I'm the president and CEO of the Oklahoma Restaurant Association, and that is true. But I'm also, one of my capacities is I'm also the president of the Oklahoma Hotel and Lodging Association, which myself and my staff, we manage the Oklahoma Hotel and Lodging Association under a contract, and have for probably about 30 years. I've been involved in with the Restaurant Association and the Hotel and Lodging Association for 16 years, and it's my pleasure to be with you this afternoon and to help share some knowledge with some very experienced and knowledgeable panelists.
Great. Well, thank you all, three of you, for being here. We really appreciate it. So why don't we jump right in with everyone's favorite topic, labor. So, even in good times, I know it's tough to retain top talent. So for Harshal and Tina, I would ask, what are you doing to keep your employees engaged and hopeful? And what are the bigger labor issues that you're facing right now?
Go ahead, Tina.
To keep our employees engaged is, I think, full transparency from the beginning, when we kind of got crushed with all the cancellation that started flowing in March and April. And I think full transparency on, an industry that most of us hoteliers have never had to lay off staff, and having the open communication with our staff that, hey, this is not something we want to do, but, we have to survive, and laying them off, helping them through the unemployment, not firing them for cause, and just being fully transparent and ethical and sensitive to their needs. So the ones that do remain, are part of the team, the process to help us get through. Really, April was, a time where they had to roll up their sleeves and do almost every job at the hotel between 5 or 6 staff members. And so I think having open communication, transparency, and really making them part of the process of how do we go from April and start ramping up the way we are slowly.
Sure.
I agree with Tina. I think, on our end too, we did unfortunately have to let people go or furlough people and things like that. And we understand it's not an easy thing for anybody on either side of that fence to do. So we've been keeping our communication pretty open with everybody, even including people that are, that we did have to lay off, that we're kind of hoping we can bring back once things settle down, or, once we get this virus and all that out of the way. I think something that's really motivated our teams is that, whenever we had the unemployment bonus happening, there were people that actually voluntarily quit and things like that too. But it was kind of interesting on weekends and things, we would get really full from just people that had extra money that they just were tired of being home. And what we would do is, due to us being so short staffed, we didn't have a choice, but we all got involved and we all went in and got our hands dirty. So we would be at a hotel doing rooms or doing laundry. I mean, that was our whole executive team, as well as anybody that was at our office. I mean, everyone stepped in where they needed to. And I think it changes the way that all of our teams worked together at that point, because they knew that it wasn't just us sitting in an office waiting for them to do things. It was us in there with them and showing them that, look, like it is at this point where we all have to come together and make this happen and get through it. And so that's kind of a way that we've motivated our teams a little bit, I feel like. And we check in with our GMs and things every week. We don't just talk to our regionals. We actually call our GMs directly and just see what's happening, and ask them and try to, if they have an issue that we know we can help fix quickly, we jump in there and get it done. And I think that's helped them get through a little bit of the, it's just a challenging time, and it's helping everyone get through together. So.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I've asked that question on a number of different regionals now, and so it's really changed the dynamics of within your companies and the way, the different sectors of your company interact. Huh? That's interesting.
Yeah.
So Jim, what are the big labor issues we're seeing, do you think, that are going to pop up in Oklahoma City and elsewhere? I'm sure you have feelers out in other capitals in the Midwest and, elsewhere. What do you think is going to come out of the Capitol regarding labor?
Well, in Oklahoma, we have I guess what most people would say, a very business-friendly legislature most of the time. I think as far as Oklahoma, and this is not unique to Oklahoma, I think this will be true in a lot of states. These are going to be 2021 is going to be a very challenging year budget-wise for states, and I think that they will be looking at a lot of different areas where they can make up revenue shortfalls that they're all going to experience. So that's not really responsive to your question about labor, but I just think it is indicative of the vigilance that we as associations and as lobbyists and for associations are going to have as we work through the legislative session, work on our priorities. We're going to need to be very vigilant about those areas where legislatures and governors and others may say, you know what, we need to take a look at this, or whatever the issue is, we need to take a look at that and maybe here's a way that we could generate revenue. And so we're going to have to be very careful about that, and we will be.
Right. Perhaps that may stem the tide of some aggressive labor pushes we've seen. I've seen it on the coasts. And so, like you said, it's more business friendly in Oklahoma City. So maybe the same inroads aren't being made by labor, but yeah, I think we may see some curtailing of their activities because as a result of budget shortfalls, because, there's no money. I mean, I know in Florida, we're so dependent on tourism, and when tourism dies, there's just no money. So the question is what's going to be cut, and how deeply, not really if there's going to be cuts. But yeah, along those same lines, Jim, not, stepping away from labor, what are we, do you see any other regulatory issues popping up? And sort of separately, where has the government stepped up and done well in Oklahoma or elsewhere that you think where they have helped during this unprecedented pandemic?
I'm glad you asked that question. We in Oklahoma, and this has been true even pre-COVID, but it's been particularly brought to light since March. We have a very good relationship in Oklahoma with our regulators, with the health department, with the tax commission, with legislative leadership, and with the governor. And we've been able to have a seat at the table, if you will, as we've worked through the safety protocols for how to operate safely in the lodging industry and in the restaurant industry. And quite frankly, it's been rewarding to be able to have a seat at the table. And we're not able to do that without the backing of our membership, which gives us the strength that we do have. What strength we do have flows from our membership, but we're able to have a seat at the table. I'll just give you a real quick instance. For instance, one of the issues, obviously, for safe operating is the continental breakfast and the self-service continental breakfast that so many limited service hotels have. And several months ago, the issue came up. Well, what can we do? How are we going to be able to do this safely? Our customers are not. They're getting tired of the prepackaged foods and those kind of things. They really enjoyed their hot breakfast, and so we were able to reach out to the health department and the health departments in Oklahoma City and Tulsa particularly, and the state health department, and say, here are some ideas that we have for best practices. Maybe providing single-use gloves for your customers that want to have a hot breakfast. You can still have it, but just put up the shields, use single-use gloves, let them serve themselves with this hot breakfast. And if we take these precautions, will you allow us to continue to do that? And because of the relationships that we have, we were able to get the health departments to agree to that. We gave that information out. We've been doing daily and weekly updates to our membership since the middle of March. And we were able to push that information out to our members and say, here's a way that you can do this, still be able to have the continental breakfast that your customers enjoy.
Yeah, that's very good. And I know I get a lot of messages from Patty Coley, so we appreciate that. So let me shift to Tina and Herschel for a second regarding banking and financing. In the wake of the pandemic, have any of you restructured your loans at all? Are you finding lenders flexible to work with? And I guess, do you expect to see, how many foreclosures do you expect to see in your markets, if any? Just, and anything else that comes to mind relating to banking and financing that you think that members would be glad to hear about?
Herschel, you want to go first?
Oh, no, you go first.
Okay. I think lenders have been interesting. I think out of the gate, they've been more than accommodating, and I'm strictly talking about community bankers here locally in Tulsa. They understand. I think of them really as my partner and an investor in our business. And so I think being transparent, openly communicating, hey, this is what's happening. We need some deferrals, and just continuing to talk to them probably every bi-weekly, putting in phone calls, providing them some data and stuff like that. And so the way I see it is they really don't want to operate the hotels in the first place. So they want to help us out as much as we can, as long as we don't go radio silent. And they've been really willing to work with us to provide a strategy and to help our runway. I think they are starting, it's been what, about 8 months, 7-8 months on what's happening, whether you're paying interest only or full deferral. I think they're starting to get a little bit jittery on that. And if we don't provide them some banking relief, they're not going to be able to help us restructure their loan, because then they get dinged by the examiners and our loans get downgraded. And so we have to get some sort of relief to them in the next 2 or 3 months, because our runway is running out. I fortunately don't have a CMBS loan. And so I have heard, though, from industry folks that that's been a little bit more of a challenge to navigate, and maybe Herschel can speak on that. But up to this,
sorry, I've heard that too. Yeah, go on.
Yeah. So otherwise, community bankers, and I think that's the relationship banking that really pays off in these kind of downturns.
Yeah, I agree with Tina. I mean, 100%. I think we're very fortunate also that we did not have any CMBS loans. And so we have been able to pick up the phone and talk to people directly at all of our community banks that we borrow from. And, you know, as Tina said, it's big time relationship business. And I don't take credit for that. I mean, my dad, and who's our CEO, and my uncle, who's our CFO, you know, they have always had really strong ties with all of our banks. And so it wasn't easy, but it was definitely a lot easier than normal when you don't have a relationship, to be able to talk to them and just say, hey, look, it is what it is. These are our numbers. I mean, we shared what our revenue numbers were doing. And they figured out that, I mean, even if they tried to force us, there was just no way to make those payments. And so we ended up getting a lot of deferred payments up front. And then we've kind of worked out interest only with them for a while until, you know, the segment starts recovering. And then once we recover, we'll move on with, you know, going back to P&I. But it's been interesting. I mean, you know, I think the banks are learning a lot too, but Tina's 100% right. They're getting a little skittish, and they're starting to worry about all the regulators coming after them for these hotel loans. But, you know, I would hope that the legislature and everyone would be able to talk to these, you know, like the regulators and things like that. And because this is out of our control. I mean, it's different if we're abusing the income coming in at these properties, but the income's not coming in because there's no travel. I mean, and there's, you know, the virus is keeping people from being able to do the things they typically do. And so, you know, we're in a holding pattern, and so we'll just have to work it out somehow.
Right. So
just to add, some of the programs that are out there, like the Main Street Lending Program, you know, it's just the way they analyze the credit risk is just not a way for hotels to take advantage of that program. And there's, you know, that would really help us get through this, maybe another year of being able to pay our P&I to the bank. But unfortunately, unless Congress mandates additional risks that the feds can take, they won't, they can't take additional risk without being passed in Congress. And so that's a program none of us can take advantage of because of our high debt.
Right. Yeah, it's very frustrating. Main Street Lending, I know, is something that we're working with a lot. You know, Chirag and Jordan are doing a lot on that as well. I get on some of that stuff, but I'm mainly state and local stuff. But working with Treasury has been frustrating. It's a lot of education to try to explain to them why we are not able to access those funds, but should be able to, as that was the intent in Congress passing, you know, the Main Street Lending Program in general. So that was, yeah, it's the Main Street Lending Program is a big time a topic of frustration for us, and I know it is for you too. So staying in that similar vein of discussion, what strategic steps are you taking to forecast revenues for the remainder of this year, next year, and how are you reducing expenses? I know that's kind of a loaded one, but.
Herschel, do you want me to go?
I mean, either way, go ahead. Ladies first.
forecast, to be honest, it's like rolling the dice right now. As I look at
Yeah.
next week, it's just, it's sad. And for the rest, really for the rest of the year, I don't, banks do ask us, hey, can you give us a pro forma for next year? It's like shooting from the hip. And so it's really, better than this year is really what I say. But I really can't speak to forecast as well as maybe our CEO. But from a cost reduction standpoint, I think early on when we saw the writing on the wall with COVID and all the sudden impact to our industry, our number one goal as a company was preserve liquidity. That was it. We essentially just stopped paying everything. If you're not a breathing human being, we were not going to pay you until we saw what was going to happen. Unfortunately, in April, the PPP came, and that gave us some runway to continue to pay off some of the bills that were past due and stuff like that. But again, payroll and supplies, that's your two biggest categories. So we reduced that. We talked to all of our vendors to, get longer payment terms, payment plans for any past dues that we didn't want to pay off right away, and had those extended. And again, just like a lender, communicate with your vendors. They're more than willing to help. They know they still want our business when we come out of here. So they're not going to just stop you and cancel you if as long as you don't go radio silent, and talk to them. And that's from utilities to telephone, internet. I think Cox was amazing. I think they gave us 3 months. I think everybody an extension of 3 months waived.
That's good.
Yeah, and I think with Jim, and everybody worked. We had property tax that was due March 31st, where the governor gave us an extension to pay that, 30 days later. So that was helpful. And I'm hoping we push that this year. That we've got a deadline coming up, December 31st, for property tax. And I just don't know how many hoteliers plan to release those funds at the end of the year. We're going to need it to last. That's kind of some stuff we did. We just preserved liquidity just because we don't know the duration of COVID, and we still don't. And so we just didn't want to release all those funds or get rid of the liquidity when we needed it.
Sure.
Yeah, our strategy was actually almost very similar. Payroll was the big thing. I mean, payroll is one of the biggest things you can control. So, we did we got GMs on the same path we were going, and they started pulling more shifts and things like that to save payroll on the front desk. We kind of went in and showed them what we're looking for on the housekeeping side of things, or back of house, so laundry side of things. And they were really responsive to it. I mean, it seemed to go pretty well. One thing we did do, any kind of cash flow that we did get out of having deferred payments and things like that, we kind of stockpiled to where we saved enough to where we could pay for the insurance, held enough that we could kind of make sure we got property taxes taken care of, or at least half the property taxes taken care of, and then tried to get to where we could prepay some interest into the future, so that the banks kind of understood that, hey, look, they're not taking that money down the road. That money is still being kind of given to the bank and to the state and counties and things like that. So that was pretty helpful in kind of negotiating with the bank a little bit later into the pandemic. Is just they knew that they were holding those funds to be used towards the right things. So it's kind of how we're still kind of going through that right now. So
right. So turning to occupancy, I know the biggest markets in Oklahoma, and I know this isn't a completely only Oklahoma focused webinar, but the biggest markets, Oklahoma City, Tulsa, and you've got your college markets, Stillwater and Norman. What are we seeing in those markets? What are the demand generators that you're seeing, and are you doing anything specifically with booking channels or using any new marketing strategies?
I think as far as we have properties in Norman, which is where the Oklahoma University is. It's been very centered around the university. We've never had just great numbers out of our properties in Norman, but they do center around football games and things like that. And it's been interesting to see that typically when you would be able to, push rate and, you'd be filling up 2 to 3 weeks before a game. Now, the night before a game, you're still at maybe 40, 50% occupancy. And then you'll pick up randomly depending on, if it's a bigger game or not. So, I think we've filled one time this season, once or twice this season for football games. So university towns, which are known to be kind of like a stable performer, it's not so much the case right now. And then, the other markets we're seeing our extended stay brands performing better when it comes to occupancy than we are our limited service transient hotels. The transient hotels, it just depends on what's happening around the area. We've had like things like baseball tournaments and things like that were still happening. So those types of things still drew traffic to the hotels. But people were kind of, instead of, if their team loses, instead of sticking around for the weekend, they were gone. Like as soon as they were out of the tournaments, they were gone, just because they were trying to get back home. So it's just hit or miss right now, but our extended stay is performing pretty decent overall. The problem is with the way occupancies are, our rates are so depressed at this point that even when you do have strong occupancy, you're not getting the income you need. So
just to add to Herschel, is we've seen the same in the Tulsa market, is kind of the regional sports clubs and things like that traveling. If they don't have, they'll travel from Dallas and Arkansas. And so that's been helping with the occupancy numbers. Monday through Thursday, the corporate crowd isn't there like we need, but the weekends seem to do definitely a little bit better in the rural markets and south markets here in the Tulsa area.
Well, that's good to hear that, at least it's a mixed bag, and maybe some of it could be coming back, but Jim, let me ask you this. What's the message you're giving to lawmakers and to state leaders about the need to allow businesses to continue to operate, as long as they do so safely, obviously? Are they asking for industry for input? I think that's obviously very important. A lot of times lawmakers don't really know what they're talking about when they're regulating or making decisions on specific industries. So are they asking you about restaurants and hotels, and what policies and procedures would actually work and that are feasible? And, do they get what we're facing as an industry?
They do. They do ask us for input. I mentioned earlier that we have what a lot of people would say is a very business-friendly legislature, and we've got a very business-friendly governor who comes from Tulsa as a first-time politician, but has been a businessman for a long time. And he has kept our state open, our economy open, with not very many restrictions, I think, to the chagrin of some people who wish that he would maybe do a statewide mask mandate, but so far he has resisted that. But this the first part of this week, the governor decided, I'm not talking about the restaurants right now, but the governor decided that he needed to do something to address and anything that he could do to stem that spread and the hospitalizations and all those things that we're dealing with right now. And so beginning Sunday night late into Monday morning, we were talking to the governor's chief of staff, myself, and some of my board members were. The governor was coming out with, I want to propose in a press conference today in an emergency order to have a curfew of 10 p.m., much like other states have done. Some states are completely shut down. I mean, New Mexico restaurants are completely shut down for inside dining and patio dining. He hasn't done that, but he said, I want a 10 p.m. curfew. I want to limit capacity to 50%. I want to require tables to be spaced out 6 feet apart. all these things that could be very onerous. So, but we were able to, again, have a seat at the table because of the relationships that we have,
That's good.
and make suggestions to the governor that he bought into 100%, because he said, Governor, we appreciate the pressure that you're under. We want to do our part. Restaurants are kind of becoming an easy scapegoat for shutting down, to say we're doing our part. You know, I'm taking these steps to shut down restaurants to stem the spread. But we were able to share with the governor and with his staff some ideas that that although they're painful, they're less onerous than what he originally had proposed.
Mhm.
And we pride ourselves on that. We pride ourselves on the ability that we have in Oklahoma. And believe me, I talk to my counterparts in other states, and I've been doing association management for a long time, and in other industries. And I can tell you that the stories that I hear from my counterparts in other states, I look at them sometimes and I say, we don't have those problems, because we can pick up the phone and sit down and have a conversation with our regulators, with our governor, with our governor's staff, and it worked. Yeah, it's tough, and it's onerous for restaurants, and it's not what they would have preferred, but it beats being shut down completely like other states are, and other jurisdictions, large cities are completely shut down. And so I'm not sure that was responsive to your question, but
But
we've
it
been,
was. Yeah.
it's been good for us.
Right.
Just to add to what Jim said, they are very accessible from even our DC lawmakers. You can pick up a phone, send an email, and they'll hear you out and see what you say. And that's not just from the governor level. I think our mayor in the city of Tulsa also has put together a task force to help reopen the city. Same with Governor Stitt. They put together, a task force of just business people, associations, to say, okay, how can we do this quickly and safely so we can get people back to work?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I can tell you that's definitely not the case in every state. Obviously, for example, in New Mexico, it's been very difficult to work with the state government there. I've heard that the governor is actually going to join the Biden administration, so there's going to be a little bit of a shakeup there, from what I've heard.
Interesting.
So, yeah, that's what I heard. I mean, it's conjecture and gossip at this point, but I think that's going to end up happening. She was spotted in DC, according to sources, who shall remain nameless.
Yeah.
So next question. I like this one a lot. For everybody, what's your biggest worry for the remainder of 2020? Which there are probably many. There's considerable ones. But then I'd ask you to follow that up with what gives you the most hope going into 2021. So biggest worry for the remainder of 2020. What do we think could go right in 2021 to help us really get out of this?
I'll speak up. Our biggest concern from a trade association and from just our staff right here in our office is the uncertainty. We talk often as a staff. We have daily staff meetings during this for the last 9 months, or however long we've been in this, and it's just the uncertainty. And we can make plans, and we try not to be naive to say, well, whatever's going to happen is going to happen, because we do a lot of events, and so we have to plan. But we are so very aware that we don't know what tomorrow is going to be like with this virus, and we've pivoted. And I'm getting tired of that word, but we pivoted today on some events that we were going to have next week. So the uncertainty of what's going to happen, I think is very trying on us. And I tell my staff, as much as we have uncertainty and stress and we're worried about the future, you can multiply that 100 times of the people that we work for and represent. with their uncertainty and their fear and their stress. So don't ever think that we've got a market on uncertainty and fear. As far as looking forward, obviously we've heard the news about the vaccine. That gives me a lot of hope. Yep. That it's going to be approved and that they'll make enough doses and be able to get it out. And for those that want to take it, that we can, and that we can get enough immunity among enough people in the United States and here in Oklahoma that we can reopen and get back to normal. There's nobody that wants that more than we do. All of us, business-wise, and just to get rid of the stress. And so I'm hopeful for that for 2021.
I concur with Jim. I'm afraid that with the rising cases, that without a mask mandate, we're headed to another shelter in place, and that's going to be devastating for consumer confidence and the few travelers that have been out there staying at our hotels. Definitely hopeful for the vaccine. I know they have 20 million doses and another 20 million. So by the time it gets to the general public, for those who take them, I feel like it's going to be second quarter 2021 before people might feel confident to travel. And the other thing I'm concerned about in 2021 is Pfizer didn't take any government money in their business. So are they going to put it in the market internationally, or they're going to give it to the US first? So that's something to worry about, but I'm hopeful for 2021. We have to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Jim and Tina. I mean, like Jim alluded to, the uncertainty is what makes, I think, people the most uncomfortable, at least from our end. That and just, the fear of just people not willing to, wear a mask or anything like. I mean, I think it's one of these where whether you believe in it or not, it's something very simple to try. That's not going to hurt anything anymore. It can't hurt us at all, actually. So if we can just get people on board, because we're all hurting. I mean, the hotel industry is hurting. We know the airline industry is hurting. The restaurant industry is hurting. I mean, I can't think of one person out there that is not, being challenged financially right now, except for maybe, Amazon's doing fantastic. So,
grocery.
Yeah, in grocery stores, but you don't have, they employ also a certain limit number of people. And so for the rest of the industries, I mean, if we can do anything that's free and not that hard to do to at least try, why would we not, just give it a shot and maybe we can get through this quicker. But I also agree with Jim on the vaccine. I mean, I think that's given hope to quite a few people. And yes, there's going to be a lot of people that are worried about it, which I understand too, but we have some of the smartest people in the world working on this stuff right now. So whether that vaccine is the cure-all or not, I think there's still something coming sooner than what a typical vaccine takes to make, which is, I think I've heard of average of 10 years or something to create a valid vaccine. So that gives me hope. I mean, I don't think there's ever been a time where the whole world, at least in my lifetime, where the whole world has had to come together to try to solve a problem that's universal across the whole world. So that's my hope, I guess.
Right. Yeah, it's really been interesting to see the so-called COVID stocks like Amazon and Zoom, which platform we're using right now, right? That is just, none of us had probably even heard of Zoom, and Clorox trade inversely proportionally to positive vaccine news, right? So you know what I mean? It's just yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. It's kind of a, perversely entertaining to see those market forces at work. But let me get back to another question here. These were good number of questions. We got a lot of them, and we kind of compiled the best ones that we thought would be the most thought-provoking. So, we saw a 10-year window of solid growth come to a crashing sudden halt, right? What's your current strategy? Beyond, obviously, I know that the strategy is to keep the doors open at all costs right now, but current strategy in terms of are you looking for distressed acquisitions or notes? How are you looking to a 5-10 year window? If you can look into your looking glass, what are you seeing in the near term, to mid-range term?
We're actually just assessing everything. It's time to take a pause and break and kind of look at our portfolio and just reassessing, maybe looking at repositioning, which fit our portfolio, which projects we want to continue to go forward with. Is there a longer timeline for those projects now? And obviously with this, you're looking to mitigate a lot more risk these days. So that's really what we're evaluating at the moment. And just surviving right now is the short-term outlook.
Sure.
Yeah, same here. I mean, I think we were doing a lot of new construction over the past 2-3 years. And we lucked out that our final project that we had in the pipeline for the year opened. Well, we lucked out and didn't luck out that it opened right before all this started, but at least we didn't have shovels in the ground on a new project or anything. So we're going to hold off for quite a while, probably at least like another year and a half before we even start thinking about a new build project again. So, our main and first responsibility right now is our own teams, the people that stuck through all this with us. And then also the banks that have trusted us for this long. I mean, we're trying to make sure that they're all taken care of first before we really start looking at future projects or anything like that. I mean, if there's a deal that comes along foreclosure wise or anything like that, we'll look at it, but we'll look at it if the banks are comfortable too. We're not going to go out on a limb just to try to make a quick profit on something right now. We need to take care of the people that took care of us. So that's kind of our I guess forecast on things right now.
Sure. Jim, do you think we'll see some consolidation in the industry at all? What are you hearing?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I obviously I don't run hotels, so I'm probably not real qualified to speak on this, but yeah, I think we will. And I think the same is true in the restaurant industry. Maybe not so much consolidation, but just people that don't survive.
Right.
Anecdotally, we don't track that right now. And I get asked this question at least twice a week. How many restaurants have closed permanently? And my answer has always been, number one, we don't track it. We hear anecdotally about restaurants that have said, look, I'm not going to make it. I'm going to go ahead and shut my doors. But the real answer to that question is we won't know till this is over. And then we'll be able to determine, okay, this many restaurants didn't survive. I know the National Restaurant Association puts out the figure and they use it in their advocacy efforts all across the country, is that approximately 100,000 restaurants have closed permanently. And if there's not, and this is true for the lodging industry too, and I know AAHOA and AAHOA are both working in tandem on this, along with the National Restaurant Association. If there's not some further assistance to the economy from Congress, then it's going to get a whole lot worse. And unfortunately, and I know, Eric, you know this, it's just frustratingly mad that these things get so tied up in politics when you've got real people out here barely hanging on.
Absolutely.
And it's frustrating. I've been doing it for a long time, but it's still frustrating.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, Tina.
No, it's just a last point. I think with the delinquency rates in the CMBS market, you'll see a lot more, predatory acquisitions there, especially with, high barrier market to entry properties that they're not willing to work with them and they might want to go ahead and take the property from them. So that's what I'm hearing about.
Yeah.
It's an ideal location or a location and a brand they want. they don't have problems just,
Snapping it up.
yeah, snapping it up. So
Sure, sure. Okay, I think we're down to, I'm getting text that we're down to our last few minutes. So let me do one more question. I like to finish with this one. How do you all believe the hospitality industry will change permanently as a result of COVID? And kind of related to that, what elements of the hotel experience do you think can really change to the benefit of the owners and the operators with maybe not so much impact on the guest? If that's not too confusing a, compound question. Who wants to tackle it? Nobody?
I'll try to tackle it. I think less touch points, which you've already seen, the less
Yeah.
interaction with our customers, everything being keyless and touchless. And so the whole customer service relationship with the client's going to be a lot less. And, our industry went based on reviews and scores, but we're not going to be able to touch and speak as much with our clients as much. And so that's going to be somewhat impactful. I think just repositioning hotels that, is there a way to get more than just your daily guests, maybe get some extended stay in there, things like that. It's just, there's a lot of unknowns, but I think the biggest impact will be just customer service interactions with our clients. It's just gonna be there.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree with Tina. I think we're gonna be challenged, I think, even more than we were prior to COVID. I mean, cleanliness was always a high standard amongst especially the bigger brands, which everyone was used to on the hotel side, on the operation side of things. But now you're adding in more layers with like you having to use Lysol and disinfectants on every handle, or all the public space needs to be sprayed down a certain amount of times a day, or you have to have extra people on your team that would walk around and clean behind people, or before people show up and things like that. It'll just be a challenge on the hotel side, because it might take a while for rates to rebound. I think when I was reading some statistical things after the financial crisis, it took about 3.5 or 4 years to rebound to the same, ADRs and RevPARs from prior to. So when you add that into the mix and you're adding in labor and things like that to just clean even more than you already were, things like that, it'll be a challenge for sure. I mean, but Tina brings up the best point that when I was hearing Tina talk, was the whole side of not being able to talk to a guest as much as you do now or prior to COVID. That's tough, because there's a lot of things that can get solved by just talking to a guest if they had a problem at your property. Then once they catch it on the backside and you end up getting the review, I mean, there's not much you can do about it. You can call them and apologize and all that, but the damage is already done.
Right.
And so that's going to be pretty tough for our industry looking forward, for sure.
That's interesting.
Just to add, just like from a sales perspective, how does a sales team now, go touch and see clients and wine and dine them with all these restrictions? It's just, how do you compete at this point?
Yeah.
It's very impersonal. So.
Yep. That's true. Jim, any final points? No.
Yeah, I will just say from the restaurant side of things, I think for a long time to come, if not permanently, even when COVID is a distant memory, that to go and carry out is going to be a larger portion of your business model.
Yep.
And restaurants, I think that haven't already done so are going to need to hone their skills, if you will. And I think that has a direct reflection on your menu. Because obviously there are some things that you do in a restaurant that don't travel well, as they say, for carryout. And so you may have two different menus. You may have a carryout menu, which some do already, and you may have the in-person menu, because some meals just don't lend themselves to that you need the experience of having it delivered to your table and enjoying it right then, rather than picking it up and then taking it to your house or your apartment or wherever. So I think to go and carry out is going to continue to be a big part of a restaurant's business model going forward, maybe even permanently.
Mhm. That makes sense. Well, thank you so much. I know there's another event that we want to usher our guests into, and I think Dacia will give us, or Tiffany maybe will come on and direct people as to where to go. But Tina, Jim, Herschel, thank you guys so much for being here today. We really appreciate it. Your insights are badly needed and truly appreciated by AAHOA and its members. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for the
All
opportunity.
right. Thank you all for sharing your valuable perspective on our industry. Now, I encourage everyone to please head over the auditorium to hear from our AAHOA officers.
Thanks, Hitesh.